Welcome to Political Perspectives. I'm Hugo Gurdon, Editor-in-Chief of The Washington Examiner. Thank you very much for joining us, and if you're joining us on YouTube, please like and subscribe to our channel. I'm joined by Byron York, Chief Political Correspondent of The Examiner. And Byron, let's talk about the big subject of the moment, which is the LA riots. The left is partying like it's 2020, the summer of George Floyd, and the Democrats are siding with the mob again. This is a terrible look for the party, isn't it?
Wasn't there a headline that said Democrats are trying to find their position on rioting? They haven't come up with a good platform on rioting yet. It's been pretty bad for them because what they've done, and if you listen to Governor Gavin Newsom's speech on Tuesday night, it was basically all blaming Trump. There's this tiniest little boilerplate about, you shouldn't set cars on fire. That's bad. But everything else is blaming Trump. And I'm not sure this is going to play with a national audience because in our tradition, when there is a riot, most of the time the people in authority come out in favor of law and order.
Right.
And we haven't seen that in California this time.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the national audience, there have been some remarkable polling numbers. One that I looked at was that back in 2020, immigrant citizens, naturalized citizens, had a generally favorable view of illegal immigrants by 23 points net favorable. Now it's 6 points net unfavorable. It's a huge swing, and indeed the biggest swing amongst any group of voters towards President Trump has been amongst immigrants. The Democrats are losing the public, even amongst those they think would be most supportive.
I think that has been the Joe Biden effect. If you're talking about 2020 until now, that is a Joe Biden effect when you have millions, we're not sure exactly how many, millions of people cross into the United States illegally. And not only are they unvetted, but we find out that they're from countries all around the world. And, in the way back time, people thought, well, they're people coming over from Mexico into the United States, and then maybe from Central America into the United States. Now you had people from the stands, you had people from Africa, India, Pakistan, all over the world coming in, some of whom were clearly coming in with bad intentions, and they were absolutely unvetted. As a matter of fact, if you came in without identification, the Border Patrol, if they caught you, would ask you for your identification information because you don't have any document or anything, and they would just write it down, and that would be it. You could be who you said you were.
Yeah, and there's no natural sympathy for the people coming in. There's not a sense of kinship because of where they're coming from.
Yeah, and most of the time, vast majority, usually over 90% of people who ask for asylum do not get it because they don't have a reasonable, well-founded fear of persecution in their homeland. Now, as admirable as some of us may think it is for someone to want to come to the United States to better their economic situation, to get a job, maybe send money back home, that's not a real reason to be admitted into the United States. And so I think people who are immigrants who are in the United States legally, they have some sort of legal status from just temporary status all the way up to a green card, and then they become naturalized citizens. I think they look at the process they went through to reach their immigration status and think, I'm not those people who are just pouring across the border, not giving any information and being put on a government flight to Oklahoma City.
Right. Another section of society that looks absolutely terrible on this are the legacy media, the left media. They have reverted to that amazingly. They've reverted to that extraordinary formulation of mostly peaceful. Just to take one example, Brian Stelter at CNN commented that
the unrest is isolated, is not overtaking the entire city of LA. LA is home to millions of people, most of whom are having a normal day.
As though this was an important point. How do they get their credibility back?
They don't. I mean, CNN especially didn't have it before this happened. Right. I do find that most parts of the city defense, which we hear from a lot of people beyond Brian Stelter, to be particularly kind of amazing. I mean, first of all, name me a riot in which every square foot of a city was somehow destroyed. Yeah. And the other thing is, January 6th was mostly confined to the Capitol grounds. Right. You could be in lots of places in Washington. You could be at Georgetown or DuPont Circle or Cleveland Park, all sorts of places in Washington, and never know it was going on. Right. It was it was still important. Right.
It was just a ridiculous point to make. Yeah. There is one thing that the left seems to me to be right on in this, and that is that President Trump wants this fight. Partly because if the crackdown is seen to be effective, if the price is raised hugely for rioting, it will have a deterrent effect. That's one reason why he wants it. I would imagine that is true. Also, of course, it's because the polling shows that it plays very well for him and very badly for the Democrats. But would you agree that this is a fight he wants to be seen having, and he's very glad about his opponents wanting to have that fight?
Yes, and I think the biggest reason is he's keeping a campaign promise. And you can say that this is one of the reasons, maybe the second most important reason next to the economy, that he was elected president. So he is keeping a promise. And he has an extraordinary record so far when you look at the border, in the sense that he has almost stopped illegal border crossings. I mean, they were going at just an incredible clip at the height of the Biden years, and now they're virtually zero. Right. So, I mean, how many presidents keep a campaign promise in the first few weeks in office? I mean, it just doesn't happen. So he's done that. And then the next thing was, he talked about mass deportations as a candidate, and he used that phrase, mass deportation. So he wasn't talking about one or two. And he feels like he's keeping that promise too.
Yeah, his extraordinary success in securing the border is, there's one aspect of it that might even come back to bite him, which is that there's billions of dollars in the one big beautiful bill for border security, and the fiscal hawks can presumably turn to him and say, well, wait a minute, isn't the border already secure? Is the 95% reduction in the illegal crossings?
I think his argument will be this. If we've seen anything in the change from Biden to Trump, it is that presidential policy can just stop traffic at the border because there's no physical barrier there. Right. And his argument for a wall was always that not that the wall would stop every single person, or not that he couldn't cut through it in spots, but that it makes it harder to get across, and it tends to focus a number of illegal crossers into specific places where they can then be caught. So I think that he's looking for a physical border security system that will outlast his presidency, because he knows the next president could just open the door like Joe Biden did. Right.
As a final question, I wanted to turn to something which I think is kind of a complex issue, and that is the Washington Examiner reporting has established connections between some of the groups, for example, the Party of Socialism, which is based in San Francisco, which are fomenting the resistance to the ICE enforcement and turning people out on the streets. There are connections between them and, for example, the Chinese Communist Party. One of the things about this issue is that it tells people that that Trump, that the current president, is on America's side. I think one of the things that has been the Democrats really suffer from at the moment is that under Obama and then under Biden, partly because of the failure on immigration, there was a sense that perhaps the Democratic Party could no longer be trusted to be on America's side. Yeah. So this gets to the issue that Democrats really do have to deal with, at least I think that they have to deal with, before they can become truly electable again. And that is to persuade voters that they are still on the side of America, because they have become the party of non-patriotism. They've become the party that backs up protesters who wave American and Palestinian flags. This, it seems to me, is a huge issue for them in the coming decades.
Yeah, I think you should also I think it's a good idea to look into who is behind these riots. Now, I think a number of conservatives have the idea that there's some sort of central command. There's like a Mr. Big issuing orders, and it doesn't work that way. On the other hand, there are groups that are doing this kind of stuff, and I would not leave out the Service Employees International Union, which has played a big role in this, is very wealthy, and is a huge force in democratic politics. So I think it's a good idea to look behind who is doing it. And there's been some analysis and reporting to the effect that for a while there, for more than a year, a number of groups on the left were basically animated by the Israel-Gaza issue. And they were basically turning a lot of their fire toward the Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party did not like that. Now, let's get everybody to turn around and point at Donald Trump. He's the real problem. So I think that you could say that there are a number of Democrats who are happy that their kind of radical troops in the field are now pointing in the right direction, which is against the Republican president, and not back at them.
Yeah. Well, we're going to see whether, I don't know whether what's happening in Los Angeles is going to calm down reasonably quickly, or it seems to have spread to other cities. Do you see this rumbling on because we're now in riot season, which is the summer, or is this something that the authorities are going to get control of this summer?
No, I do see it rumbling on. I think we've seen some stuff in Chicago already, and this is the kind of thing that can take place anywhere if ICE is doing enforcement raids. And I think you can say, I think the president can say, and everybody in the administration can say, look, the United States government has the right to enforce immigration law, and if the agents of the U.S. government need protection because they're enforcing the law, then they should get it. So I think that's a recipe for a future confrontation.
Well, on that happy note, Byron,
there you go.
We'll leave it for this week. Thanks very much for joining me. Thank you all for joining me, and join us again next time.